Have you ever stared down something so immense, so utterly challenging that it felt like it would, well, just break you? Maybe a personal setback, a professional crisis, or perhaps just a moment that shook your world right to its core? What if I told you that that very experience, that very moment of despair or difficulty, could actually be transformed into your greatest source of power? Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really profoundly insightful conversation. We're drawing from the recent reflections of a renowned author and keen observer of human behavior. Our mission is to unpack his transformative ideas on how those seemingly negative experiences, the kind that often leave us feeling vulnerable, maybe defeated, can actually be alchemized, turned into incredible strengths, and how that can lead to mastery, renewed purpose, and maybe an unshakable sense of self. It's about more than just surviving, really. It's about extracting gold from the crucible of adversity.
Exactly. And what is truly striking here, I think, is the exploration of how adversity, pain, even what we might call our shadow or dark side, how these aren't simply obstacles to be endured, they're actually the raw materials for profound personal and professional transformation. So we'll delve into the necessary mindset shifts, explore some practical strategies, and maybe unearth some historical wisdom too. Things that can equip you, listening right now, to not just weather any storm life throws your way, but to genuinely thrive, to emerge stronger on the other side. It's not really about avoiding pain. It's more about understanding its profound, often hidden value.
Okay, let's really unpack this then. Let's start with a vivid, very personal account from the author himself. He shared a harrowing story of a massive health event he experienced just a couple of years back. Something completely unexpected and severe that threatened his life. A medical emergency that brought him, right to the brink.
Yeah, this event, a sudden and truly debilitating medical crisis, it just plunged him into this incredibly vulnerable state. I mean, imagine, if you will, someone who's inherently independent, someone whose whole way of balancing themselves, de-stressing, is through really physical activities, right? Vigorous swimming, long hikes, challenging cycling routes, that kind of thing. And then suddenly, almost overnight, those very foundations of his identity, his well-being, they were violently stripped away, gone. He found himself grappling with a daily struggle that honestly many of us can scarcely imagine. From the simplest acts, like just trying to walk across a room without falling, to the painstaking effort of holding a pen or even just a fork in his hand. It sounds small, but it's huge. He became deeply dependent on others for basic functions. And as he described it, that was a profound, a really jarring challenge for someone so used to self-reliance. And the internal battle he faced during this time, immense, perhaps even more formidable than the physical one, actually. He spoke with striking candor about moments where he genuinely just wanted to give up, admitting to an initial despair so profound it bordered on, well, even touched upon, suicidal thoughts.
Wow, that's incredibly honest.
It is. Yet beneath that profound despondency, there was an even deeper, almost unconscious wellspring of willpower, something that kept him tethered to life. He vividly recounted this powerful desire, this relentless determination that just emerged from within him, the absolute need to complete another significant written work he'd already started.
Ah, so a sense of purpose.
Exactly. That purpose, that unwavering mission to bring his ideas into the world, it became an anchor in the storm. It fueled his refusal to surrender, even when his body felt utterly broken and his spirit was stretched to its absolute limit. It was the belief in the unfinished work, and the potential impact of that work on others that literally kept him fighting for each breath, and the recovery process itself. It wasn't some quick fix or just passively waiting around. No, it was an arduous, deeply humbling 2-year journey. He described it as this relentless, daily physical therapy regimen. Consistency was everything.
Right, not necessarily intensity, but just showing up every day.
Precisely. Like he bought a specialized recumbent bicycle, a stark contrast to the outdoor competitive cycling he once loved, right? Where he'd push himself up incredible hills.
Yeah.
He recalled being passed by people much older than him on this bike. He said it was deeply humbling, but ultimately motivating. It stripped away his ego, forced him to focus purely on recovery. He consistently forced himself to use his weaker hand for the simplest everyday tasks, writing notes, opening doors, essentially retraining his brain and body through sheer, sometimes monotonous repetition.
That sounds incredibly frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. He acknowledged the moments of crying, the frustration, the sheer desire to just quit, but he framed it as this relentless determination, like a boxing match, every single day against his own limitations. He was constantly seeking new therapists, experimenting with different exercises, relentlessly focusing on rebuilding strength in specific tiny muscles just to regain a fraction of normal function. This wasn't just about moving his limbs, it was about reclaiming his agency, one painstaking movement at a time. And if we connect this personal journey to the bigger picture for you, the listener, it's not simply a story about physical recovery from an illness. It really stands as a profound testament to the indomitable power of the human spirit's refusal to surrender. Even when faced with what seems like insurmountable physical and mental breakdown, it highlights a crucial, often overlooked truth. The physical struggle is almost always inextricably linked to a deeper mental and emotional one.
Right, they feed into each other.
Totally. Overcoming one aspect through sheer will and focused effort profoundly impacts and empowers the other. His story reminds us that true resilience isn't forged in comfort, is it? It's forged in the white-hot crucible of sustained effort against overwhelming odds.
So after enduring such an intense personal ordeal, something that brought him so close to the edge, what did he identify as the biggest, most impactful lessons he took away? What fundamentally changed for him?
Yeah, and this raises a truly profound question, doesn't it? How do you possibly find blessings or deeper meaning in what initially seems like the absolute worst thing imaginable?
Mhm.
For him, this near-death experience fundamentally, irrevocably reshaped his appreciation for life itself, and perhaps even more importantly, for the people in his life. He recounted how the second-year anniversary of the event wasn't just another date on the calendar. It was a stark, visceral reminder, like a full-body recollection of just how close he came to dying. He spoke of it as a moment where he could almost feel his bones melting.
Yeah.
That's how intense it was. So every single new day since then has been framed not as a given, but as a second lease on life. A profound, fragile gift not to be squandered. And this isn't just some philosophical notion for him, it's a lived reality. It infuses every moment with this heightened sense of gratitude. And this intimate brush with mortality also ignited a newfound, almost burning urgency to complete his work. The existential realization of life's inherent fragility, the undeniable knowledge that tomorrow is never guaranteed, that at any moment it could all just be gone, that became an immense motivator. He often pondered the idea that, look, in a few hundred years, virtually no one will even remember us.
A sobering thought.
Right. But rather than being disheartening, that thought actually propelled him forward. It transformed what might have been a long-term, maybe leisurely project into an immediate pressing mission. He used this awareness of mortality, this profound sense of finitude, to fuel his present work, to ensure he left behind something meaningful. This whole transformative process, he notes, really resonates with an ancient philosophical concept, the idea of amorphity, loving one's fate.
Amor fati. Yeah.
It's about actively transmuting any seemingly bad thing that fate brings into something precious, turning the metaphorical lead of suffering into the goals of wisdom and renewed purpose, much like the alchemists of old sought to do. Right?
Exactly.
It's an active choice to embrace, rather than merely endure, every single experience.
That's such a powerful shift in perspective. But let's get into the practical side for you, the listener. How do we actually take any negative experience or even just a lingering negative emotion and find a way to transmute it? Turn it into something healthy, something positive, something that propels us forward. Our expert delves into this potent idea of your attitude being like a camera lens, fundamentally shaping how you perceive and therefore experience the entire world around you.
Yes, and this raises a truly fundamental question about personal agency, doesn't it? And the profound, often underestimated impact our internal state have on our external reality. The author explains it quite elegantly. Your perspective, your chosen way of looking at things, fundamentally determines your reality. Think of your attitude as the lens on a camera. Just as no two camera lenses will capture the exact same event in precisely the same way one might emphasize light, another shadows, one a wide shot, another a close-up well. No two people perceive the world identically either.
Makes sense.
So if you consciously or unconsciously choose to focus on obstacles, on external factors you think are beyond your control, like economic downturns, a global health crisis, perceived injustices from others, you actively reinforce a negative defensive attitude within yourself.
Yeah.
This sort of crystallization of negativity, then, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, tends to manifest those very outcomes in your life.
You become what you perceive.
In a very real way, yes. And to bring this to life, let's consider a very common interaction. He offers this concrete example. Imagine you're approaching a crucial interaction, maybe a job interview, a difficult negotiation, or even just a casual chat with a new acquaintance. If you enter that interaction with a defensive or suspicious attitude, the other person, being astute and sensitive to subtle cues, often unconsciously, right, will almost certainly pick up on that energy.
Yeah.
Their reaction will likely be reserved, perhaps even negative or guarded, inadvertently confirming your initial negative bias. And here's the insidious part. Most people, in their lack of self-awareness, will then blame the other person. They'll think, why were they so cold? They clearly don't like me.
Right, without realizing they set the tone.
Exactly. Without ever realizing they themselves created that very dynamic through their own initial internal posture. The lens through which you view the world is, in essence, the world you create for yourself. And this principle, it extends far beyond individual interactions. It applies to broader, more pervasive challenges we face, both collectively and personally. A major global health crisis, for instance, or even the devastating personal blow of losing a job. Understandably, these can be seen as utter ruin, like a bomb exploded in your life, leaving only wreckage. That reaction is natural, it's human, it's valid.
Of course.
However, with a conscious and deliberate shift in perspective, that very same crisis can be reframed. It can be viewed as a profound, albeit difficult, opportunity. It becomes a chance, maybe a forced pause, to reevaluate your entire life,
Yeah.
your career path, your core values, the quality of your relationships, your true priorities.
For reset, almost.
Exactly. A time for reorientation, a forced period of self-discovery, maybe significant mental enrichment through reading, deep introspection, perhaps even acquiring new skills. The core philosophy here, famously captured in some foundational text on overcoming challenges, is that the obstacle is the way.
Hmm.
Adopting a mindset where challenges aren't immovable roadblocks, but rather crucial, often illuminated paths forward that makes you virtually unstoppable. It's all about that internal mental switch, that radical reframing of what seems like a setback into a springboard.
That's such a profound idea that our internal mindset can literally shape our external reality.
Yeah.
And building on that, it sounds counterintuitive, I know, but the author argues that defeat or even outright failure might just be the greatest gift, the most impactful thing that can happen to you. Why is that? What's the hidden wisdom in falling short?
Well, what's truly fascinating here is the wisdom gleaned from setbacks. It's a crucial lesson that's often entirely missed in the, intoxicating glow of continuous success. When you're constantly successful, career, relationships, personal pursuits, whatever, you often don't truly learn. Instead, there's this dangerous tendency to become grandiose, developing what he calls a Midas touch delusion, where you genuinely start to believe that anything you touch will magically turn to gold.
Right, you feel infallible.
Exactly. And you also tend to surround yourself with flatterers, with sycophants, as he puts it, who just reinforce your inflated self-image and never challenge your assumptions. This inevitably leads to stagnation. Because you stop critically challenging yourself, you lose touch with the brutal realities of the world, you become disconnected from your own limits. And this, he argues, often sets the stage for much larger, more devastating future disasters. Failure, on the other hand, acts as this profound grounding force. It exposes your limits, it brutally reveals what you did wrong, and it undeniably shows you what you must do differently to succeed next time. It's the ultimate teacher of humility and adaptability. He shares a very compelling personal anecdote that illustrates this perfectly. Early in his career, he worked on a collaborative book project. The initial draft was submitted, and to his considerable shock and ego bruising, it was flat out rejected by the publisher. Big ouch. Their reason: it simply lacked his unique voice. It was too much a reflection of his celebrity collaborator. This rejection was a significant blow, a direct threat to the project's very existence. It forced him, under incredibly tight deadlines, to completely rewrite the entire work from scratch. This intense pressure cooker experience, driven by his own pride and a very real fear of losing the project entirely, taught him invaluable lessons about trusting his own distinctive style and ideas.
Instead of trying to mimic someone else.
Precisely. Or deferring to another's influence. As he bluntly puts it, failure taught him this. Success taught him nothing. He learned to have unwavering faith in his own perspective, his own unique approach, and not to compromise his true artistic identity. A lesson he wouldn't have learned, he reckons, had that first draft been an immediate success. And this principle, it isn't just confined to personal anecdotes. It's echoed throughout history and leadership studies. He references a famously brilliant military leader who, after a decade of virtually unparalleled success on the battlefield, eventually experienced a series of truly abysmal failures that led to his ultimate downfall.
Why? What changed?
Because, as the author meticulously observed, success had made him conservative. He grew rigid. He lost touch with the very innovative, adaptable strategies that had led to his initial victories. He became complacent, believing his past triumphs would simply carry him through. True sustained progress, the author emphasizes, comes from being perpetually open to new information, constantly challenging oneself and embracing change with an almost zealous dedication, not rigidly adhering to what worked in the past.
So, staying adaptable.
It's about being willing to shift, to adapt, to pivot, and to constantly be in a state of learning and evolution. The moment you believe you've mastered it all, that's precisely when you begin to stumble.
That's a crucial point, really learning from what didn't work. So, for
Mm.
you listening right now, when you face a tragedy, a significant loss, or maybe a professional failure, what are the actionable, self reflective questions you can ask yourself to begin this transformation, to move from despair to growth? How do you initiate that internal alchemy?
Yeah, this raises a critically important question. How do we actively reframe our inner dialogue, especially in the heat of the moment, when everything feels overwhelming and you're just consumed by the pain of the present? The author suggests starting with a powerfully simple yet incredibly effective perspective-shifting question. Could it have been worse?
Hmm,
Exactly. This question immediately forces you to gain a vital sense of proportion. As long as you have your body and your mind intact, your fundamental tools for navigating the world, he argues, recovery and rebuilding are possible from almost anything. Even something as seemingly devastating as public humiliation can be overcome. He notes people, quite surprisingly, have remarkably short memories. They tend to quickly forget your missteps and focus on your most recent success.
that's actually quite reassuring.
It is, isn't it? It's rarely as dire or as permanently damaging as it appears in the immediate aftermath. The second crucial question to internalize is, what is the lesson I can learn from this?
Hmm.
This is where you actively prevent yourself from defaulting to blaming others, blaming circumstances, or most damagingly, blaming yourself. Instead, the focus shifts entirely to extracting wisdom, practical insights for the future. For example, after a painful breakup, instead of dwelling endlessly on who was at fault or how you were wronged, you can ask yourself, what did this experience teach me about what I truly want from a relationship going forward?
Right. What did I learn about myself, about what I need?
Precisely. Perhaps you realize a profound need for more emotional stability, or conversely, a greater desire for spontaneous excitement. This transformative mindset compels you to look for the positive outcomes, the hidden blessings that might emerge from seemingly negative situations. A health crisis, as we discussed, can force a deep appreciation for life and loved ones. A global disruption or job loss can compel a radical reevaluation of your career, your values, your true passions, ultimately leading you to a more authentic path.
So, being a detective of your own setback.
I like that. Yes, seeking out the clues for future success. And critically, beyond these questions, you must actively cultivate what he calls a future-oriented mindset. When you are immersed in a painful moment, a breakup, job loss, personal crisis, it feels massive, all-consuming, as if it defines your entire existence.
Totally. It feels permanent.
It does. But with the passage of time and the gaining of distance, that overwhelming moment inevitably shrinks. It becomes just a smaller part of your larger narrative. He emphasizes that truly successful people are almost always focused on the next project, on what they'll be doing in the years to come, not weighed down by past grievances or perpetually dwelling on that situation that ruined my last opportunity. It's like the unwritten rule in professional sports. When a star player goes down with an injury, the mentality is next man up. You adapt, you move on, you find a way to win the game with the resources you have. Adaptability again. Exactly. Now, this doesn't mean you ignore pain entirely. He advises patience with oneself. It's perfectly okay to feel depressed immediately after a setback, to wallow for a few days, maybe even a few weeks. But you must understand with absolute certainty that you will pick yourself up. The key is to allow that initial phase of sadness, to process it, but always with the underlying certainty that you will emerge from it, stronger and more focused on the future. The pain is a signal, not a permanent state.
That's incredibly practical advice for reframing those difficult moments. But let's dig a bit deeper into the emotional landscape here. How important is the expression of emotions and feelings in this whole process? Do the greats, so to speak, suppress them, or do they channel them effectively? This brings us to a truly fascinating metaphor he uses to describe emotional mastery.
Yes, and what's truly fascinating here is a deep psychological truth that the author really highlights. Repressing emotions, pushing down what you genuinely feel, it comes with a significant and often unseen price. As some celebrated psychologists have long observed, what we might deem the dark side, or our dark emotions, things like anger, fear, resentment, frustration, if they're systematically repressed and denied, they will inevitably manifest, usually in uncontrollable, often destructive ways.
Like bubbling up unexpectedly.
Exactly. We see this play out in chronic anger issues, various addictions, or impulsive, self-sabotaging decisions that derail one's life. Maintaining a facade of stoicism or constant positivity, he argues, can be incredibly costly to your long-term well-being and effectiveness. You can't outrun your shadow, you have to integrate it. However, the opposite extreme, constantly emoting, allowing every fleeting feeling to spill out indiscriminately without a filter, that's also deeply problematic. It indicates a profound lack of self-control, and it can quickly lead to others judging you as weak, unstable, or frankly just irritating.
Finding the balance then.
Precisely. The ideal balance, the path to true emotional mastery, he suggests, is beautifully captured by the ancient and powerful metaphor of the rider and the horse. Your rational brain, your conscious thought, is the rider guiding and directing. Your emotions, however, are the powerful, primal, often wild horse. If you hold the reins too tightly representing repression, the horse becomes unresponsive, rebellious, and might eventually buck you off entirely. Conversely, if you let go of the reins completely, the horse runs wild, leading to chaos, exhaustion, and often self-destruction. The master rider understands the horse's nature, its immense power, allows it some freedom and expression, but always maintains a firm yet gentle control, guiding it towards a specific purpose or destination. It's about leading, not stifling.
Yeah.
He shares a very relatable personal example of this, something I think many of us can empathize with, that immediate regret that follows sending an angry communication, like an ill-advised email to his agent.
Oh, yeah, we've all been there. That sinking feeling.
Totally. He recognized that distinct sinking feeling of, I shouldn't have sent that.
Yeah.
The key, he realized, isn't to suppress the initial anger. Instead, it's about engaging with it, truly understanding and processing it before it takes over. Before hitting send on that angry email, you pause. You ask yourself, why am I truly angry? Is this anger genuinely important in the grand scheme of things? And critically, is it possibly, even partially, my own fault?
Taking that moment of reflection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you go through this process of questioning and self-reflection, you're not repressing the anger, you're letting it work for you. That same raw, intense anger can then be constructively channeled into productive work. Maybe writing a more incisive chapter, dedicating yourself to a challenging new project, or pouring energy into a worthy social cause. Which brings us to another fascinating question he poses. When does anger or frustration actually become a more potent, maybe even a superior creative force than purely positive emotions like love or joy? Well, often those very dark energies, the anger, the resentment, the frustration, even a deep sense of injustice, they possess a tremendous, almost unparalleled impelling power. They can be incredibly motivating forces. For the author personally, it wasn't a feeling of love or pure inspiration that compelled him to write one of his foundational best-selling works. He frankly admitted it was a deep-seated anger and bitterness stemming from his experiences working in a particular, often ruthless industry. It was a visceral feeling of, I'll show you.
Right, that edge.
That raw, intense, almost vindictive emotion provided an undeniable, almost unstoppable drive that pure affection simply couldn't match in that context. And this idea, it resonates deeply with so many people because, look, in a world where we often feel immense pressure to be constantly pleasant, agreeable, politically correct, works that authentically express pain, anger, or a powerful sense of injustice strike a profound chord. They articulate with a powerful voice what many people feel but often cannot or dare not express themselves.
Giving voice to the unvoiced.
It's exactly. Creating a truly powerful, often cathartic connection with the audience. He cites the striking example of a famous, highly competitive basketball player who openly admitted to embracing his dark, aggressive energy, often describing games as war. This player, a true master of his craft, learned not to suppress this raw competitiveness, but to channel it precisely into being an exceptional teammate, a relentless defender, an unstoppable scorer. He transformed it into a profoundly positive force on the court. Similarly, another elite player, known for his relentless drive, exhibits an almost animalistic refusal to lose on the court. That's a powerful, distinct energy from simply loving the sport. It's the ferocious will to dominate, to overcome, to win that propels them. But he emphasizes a crucial distinction here. The goal isn't to use this energy to humiliate others or to lash out destructively. That's just giving into the negative, untamed side of the dark energy.
Right, it needs direction.
Purpose, absolutely. It's about channeling that intense energy towards a higher constructive purpose. For the basketball players, it was winning championships, achieving greatness, and subsequently, as many of them do, giving back to their communities. He shares his own personal experience of using his profound frustrations and anger to write a highly influential work. His motivation wasn't to mock or personally attack those he disliked. Rather, it was to empower readers, to show them how to navigate complex social dynamics, understand human nature, and avoid the very pitfalls he had encountered. His anger was transmuted into knowledge designed to uplift and protect. And this concept extends powerfully to social causes too. There is undeniably much injustice and inequality in the world. Channeling personal anger or outrage into a worthy cause, fighting for social justice, advocating for a movement, championing a marginalized community, that's a brilliant and highly effective way to transform what could be destructive dark energy into something profoundly positive and transformative. He points to a renowned civil rights leader who, despite facing horrific injustices, channeled his righteous anger at systemic oppression into an unwavering fight for his people's rights, using that deep frustration as fuel for monumental social change.
Using anger for good.
Yes, but the key, he advises, and this is vital for your own well-being, to not become a prisoner of the injustice you fight, is to ensure your energy remains singularly focused on the cause itself, on helping people, rather than solely on your own personal emotions or ego. It's about transcending the self and dedicating that powerful energy to something far greater than yourself, a continuous process of externalizing that potent force for a beneficial impact on the world.
That's a truly profound articulation of how to wield internal power for external good. And this idea of channeling energy, of mastering emotions, it ties perfectly into the broader concept of mastery itself, doesn't it? We've talked about transforming yourself through adversity. Let's not talk about mastering a skill, a craft, or even the subtle art of living.
Right. And what's truly fascinating here is how one actually becomes a master. The author's own unique journey provides a compelling illustration. Over a period of, say, 20 to 30 years, he didn't rigidly stick to a single form of writing or communication. Instead, he made a conscious effort to master various forms, from incisive newspaper articles to magazine features, screenwriting, and eventually different types of books, each demanding its own unique discipline and approach.
Just building a wide skill set.
Exactly. This diverse experience, this incredible range as he describes it, is precisely what ultimately gave him the unique ability to write in his distinctive, influential way today. He wasn't afraid to experiment, to try different things, but crucially, he approached each new venture with an unwavering dedication to mastering it, not just superficially dabbling. This breadth, combined with depth, became his secret weapon. He explains that particularly early in one's career, say in your 20s or early 30s, you generally need a clear path, something concrete to hang on to dedicate yourself to mastering for at least a few years. This provides a crucial foundation, a sense of direction and accomplishment. But this path, he stresses, should not be rigid or unyielding. Yes, flexible, almost like a meandering river rather than a straight, unyielding line. This flexibility allows for exploration, for pivoting when necessary, and importantly, it prevents burnout or the crushing weight of boredom. He notes from his own experience that it often takes a significant amount of time to truly find one's authentic life's task or true calling. In his case, it wasn't until his mid-30s that he truly pinpointed his unique purpose.
So patience is needed on that journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Patience with that journey of discovery is key. And crucially, when charting this path, he emphasizes that challenges should be chosen strategically. The ideal challenge, he advises, should be just slightly above your current skill level.
The optimal challenge.
Exactly. This creates a state of optimal learning and engagement, fostering continuous growth and excitement without becoming overwhelming. If challenge is too easy, it leads to boredom and stagnation. If it's too hard, it can lead to overwhelming defeat and discouragement. This constant, deliberate pursuit of the optimal challenge ensures continuous, motivated growth on the path to mastery. It keeps you energized, fully engaged, and perpetually expanding your capabilities. It's a continuous dance between ambition and realistic assessment.
That concept of the optimal challenge is something we can all apply, really, no matter our stage in life. So, given his extensive body of work, all those principles and laws he's identified over the years, were there particular ones that resonated most deeply with him before his major health event, and then maybe others that took on entirely new, profound meaning afterward?
Yeah, that's a fascinating and important question about the personal application of principles, right? And how life's most impactful experiences can dramatically reshape our understanding of wisdom we thought we already possessed. Before his health crisis, a principle from his foundational work on power dynamics deeply resonated with him. Never overshadow the person in authority. This wasn't just some abstract intellectual concept for him. It was a lesson forged in the painful crucible of personal experience.
Yeah.
He vividly recounted being fired from a film industry job precisely because, as a researcher, he had inadvertently outshone his superior. Others were praising his insights more than hers.
Triggering insecurity.
Exactly. Which, predictably, stirred up her deep-seated insecurities. This taught him the critical importance of profound social intelligence, understanding others' insecurities, especially those in positions of power, who are often riddled with far more doubts and anxieties than you might ever expect. He realized that people, even those above you, often operate from a place of their own fears and ego. Navigating that landscape requires profound awareness and strategic subtlety. However, after the life-altering health event, a different principle, one from his book on strategy and adaptability, became profoundly central to his daily existence. Assume formlessness.
Formlessness, like water.
Precisely. This ancient military concept, rooted in profound strategic thought, is about being utterly fluid, about adapting to circumstances without a rigid plan or concrete, unyielding structure. He described how, when his body's physical fluidity was severely limited by the stroke, the inability to move as he once did, the constant feeling of physical obstruction, his mind had to become even more adaptable, more open. He had to meticulously retrain himself from getting stuck in rigid negative thought patterns and debilitating frustrations. He learned to truly take each day as it came, adapt to his new physical reality, and resist being tied to old ways of thinking or doing things, or falling into defensiveness.
Mental fluidity compensating for physical limitation.
Exactly. This principle, he notes, is perhaps more for those who have already achieved a level of mastery, or for anyone facing truly major life blows. It's about becoming like water, capable of flowing into any container, adjusting to any obstruction, finding a new path when the old one is no longer viable. It's the ultimate lesson in adaptability and surrender to the present reality.
That shift from never overshadow to assume formlessness is a powerful reflection of how life's trials can refine our deepest wisdom. And your reflections on personal experience and these evolving principles lead us perfectly to the motivation for his next major work. What's driving this new project? What's the vision behind it?
Well, what's truly fascinating here is the deep frustration he expresses with a common human tendency, our propensity towards limited thinking, our pervasive failure to truly grasp the, as he puts it, insanely awesome nature of existence itself. His ambition with this new work is nothing less than to reanimate the soul, to reawaken that vibrant, uninhibited childhood curiosity that makes everything feel utterly wow and full of wonder.
Fighting against banality.
Yes. He conveys a genuine anger at the ways so many people get locked into what he calls banal worlds, often consumed by the superficiality of social media, missing the profound wonder and sheer beauty of life unfolding all around them. He describes the core concept of this upcoming work as the sublime. And this isn't just about beauty, it's about opening one's mind and spirit as wide as humanly possible, going far beyond conventional thought patterns and everyday perceptions. The ultimate sublime experience, he profoundly suggests, is confronting death itself.
Wow.
This direct confrontation, this visceral dance with mortality, it shakes you to your very core, transforms your perception, and makes you acutely aware of the brevity and immense, untapped possibilities of life. Near-death experiences, he notes, have been known to completely enlighten individuals, stripping away superficiality and revealing profound truths. For him, the stroke transformed death from a mere intellectual idea into a visceral, gut-wrenching feeling, a sensation, as he put it, of his bones melting.
Making it real.
Utterly real. This intensely personal experience of being brought to the absolute threshold of death itself has infused the concept of the sublime with a profound, almost spiritual, personal meaning, making it far more than just a philosophical idea for him. Interestingly, his own health crisis, which severely curtailed his ability to undertake grand external adventures, to research the book he'd initially planned to travel to remote places like Antarctica, or engage in extreme sports like paragliding.
Right, the things you might typically associate with the sublime.
Exactly. That limitation ironically shaped its very core message. He came to this powerful realization. He must live the book in his head. This meant delving into the sublime through imagination, introspection, deep intellectual exploration, making the profound experience of wonder accessible and relatable to all readers, regardless of their physical limitations or ability to travel to distant lands.
So it became more internal, more universal.
Precisely. This pivotal shift transformed the book's purpose, emphasizing that the power of imagination, your internal capacity to envision and explore, can create profound transformative experiences, entirely independent of external circumstances, which naturally leads us to ask, how utterly vital is imagination in transforming our present circumstances and envisioning a profoundly different, more fulfilling future? Imagination, as he emphasizes, is incredibly powerful, perhaps even more powerful than mere knowledge, as some great thinkers have suggested. It is the fundamental faculty that allows us to envision that things don't have to remain as they are, Just because you might be stuck in a difficult present facing limitations or overwhelming challenges doesn't mean your future is predetermined to follow that same trajectory.
It opens up possibilities.
Exactly. Through imagination, you possess the capacity to envision a different path for yourself, to conceive of a more fulfilling relationship, or to imagine a radically different, more authentic version of yourself. He laments that a pervasive lack of imagination is a major hurdle that often holds people back from realizing their full, extraordinary potential, keeping them trapped within what he calls a small little circle of thought. The ability to courageously step outside of that circle, to imagine and meticulously plan for a different future, he concludes, is not just a creative exercise. It is the absolute first, indispensable step towards actually creating that future, towards turning the invisible into the tangible.
That's a truly inspiring call to embrace our imaginative power. But let's pivot to something incredibly practical now. If you, our listener, are maybe in your 20s or 30s right now, navigating the complex waters of career, relationships, life in general, what would you say is the single greatest skill to master? The one that will pay dividends across all these domains?
Right. Well, what's profoundly fascinating here is the core principle he identifies as paramount. If you can truly, deeply understand what other people are thinking and feeling, the sky's literally the limit. For your influence, your effectiveness, your overall success in life. People, he explains, are often a profound mystery. They operate behind intricate masks, driven by motivations that aren't immediately apparent. While you can't literally read minds, you absolutely can develop profound empathy, which he considers half that power of true mind reading.
Empathy is a superpower.
Pretty much. This, he argues, is the single greatest skill to cultivate, especially for young adults navigating complex social and professional landscapes. It is the key to unlocking meaningful connection and powerful impact. The fundamental shift required, he emphasizes, is to consciously move from being perpetually absorbed in your own thoughts, your own internal dramas, that ceaseless me, internal monologue, and to intentionally shift your entire focus to the other person. You must learn to see them as an undiscovered, fascinating world, as complex and compelling as a character in a great novel or film.
Shifting the focus outward.
Completely. When you are listening, don't just passively wait for your turn to respond, rehearsing your next point in your head. Instead, actively, truly absorb their words, their underlying energy, their body language, the nuances of their expression. Try to understand the subtext, their deeper motivations, their inner life, the insecurities that drive them. This profound practice, he notes, automatically prevents you from taking things personally, because you begin to realize that their actions and reactions often stem from their own internal world, their own anxieties, not necessarily from anything directly related to you. And for persuasion, for influence, for building strong relationships, this deep, empathetic understanding allows you to precisely tailor your message to their interests, to their problems, to their unique way of seeing the world.
Meeting them where they are.
Exactly. This is what truly opens doors and builds trust. He offers a very practical, subtle tip. Gently, subtly ask about their childhood. It's often a surprisingly potent area of emotional attachment and formative experience for most people, and it can reveal deep insights. Crucially, let them do most of the talking. Aim for them to speak maybe 70 to 80% of the time, while you occasionally mirror their experiences or feelings to build genuine connection.
So it's not an interrogation.
Not at all. It's an art of subtle, empathetic engagement, a delicate balance of drawing them out and connecting on a profound human level. This skill, he assures, is more valuable than pretty much any technical expertise you might acquire.
That insight into understanding others is invaluable, but for many of us, there's another common struggle that often paralyzes action: self-doubt. That pervasive nervousness, the crippling fear of failure. How do we train our minds to overcome this, to step forward instead of being completely paralyzed by uncertainty?
Yeah, this raises an incredibly important question about practical, actionable steps to build genuine confidence and overcome debilitating self-doubt. The simple yet profound answer he offers is preparation. If you do your homework meticulously researching the person you're meeting, the company you're interviewing with, the situation you're entering, every conceivable angle, you significantly reduce insecurity. He shares the illuminating example of a famous film director who was famously, almost eerily, calm on set. Why? Because he had meticulously prepared every single detail beforehand. Every shot, every line, every costume, every potential contingency.
Peter directed the movie in his head.
Exactly. By the time filming began, he was, as the director himself put it, bored because he knew precisely how it would unfold, having removed all uncertainty. This level of meticulous, almost obsessive preparation, he asserts, eliminates maybe 80% of crippling doubt. It's not just about knowing facts. It's about rehearsing difficult conversations in your head, anticipating objections, even scripting potential failures so you already know your recovery strategy.
Like a pilot running through checklists.
Precisely. You prepare for the worst so you can execute your best. Now, he acknowledges that a degree of nervousness, that natural rush of adrenaline, is not only natural but can actually be beneficial. It keeps you alert, sharp, prevents overconfidence. But beyond preparation, he argues, the most important moment, the true turning point, is taking that first step, acting and trying something despite the doubt that inevitably lingers. Pain, he suggests, can be a surprisingly powerful motivator here. If you don't try now, if you succumb to the fear, the pain of wasted potential and future regret will be far, far greater and more enduring.
The pain of regret versus the pain of trying.
Exactly. He frames it as a choice between a brief, current discomfort, the jitters of trying something new, and a prolonged, deeper future suffering that comes from wondering what if and living with the crushing weight of inaction. He powerfully references the concept of exposure therapy, much like how someone overcomes claustrophobia by gradually re-entering the feared situation. You have to willingly experience the fear, confront the possibility of failure or judgment to realize it's not as bad, not as devastating as your anxious mind imagined. This experiential learning, this direct confrontation with your fears is absolutely crucial. He passionately encourages listeners to actually list their biggest fears, physically circle the top one, and then do that very thing, repeatedly if necessary, until they feel a sense of peace with it, or at least they're no longer paralyzed by it.
Facing the fear directly.
Yes. He cites the historical practice of Roman emperors having a servant whisper, "Memento mori," you will die, a reminder of their mortality. For the listener, this becomes a powerful internal whisper. You are wasting your precious life if you don't try. This moment will pass, but regret can last a lifetime. He even admits to a persistent fear of failure himself, despite significant success, which ironically keeps him intensely motivated to constantly strive for excellence and avoid disappointing his audience. This ambition, when channeled for a higher purpose like helping others, he insists, is not selfish. It is a potent force for positive impact. That's a powerful call to action, really, to lean into discomfort for long-term growth. Shifting gears now, maybe towards the end, as someone who has studied history extensively, seeing patterns and cycles in human behavior, societal evolution, what do you think is truly going on in the world today? What's the zeitgeist, the spirit of our times, and where do you see us headed? Well, what's profoundly fascinating here is his deep insight that the human spirit simply cannot endure prolonged stagnation. He observes that we are currently experiencing a period of what he calls ossified political and social structures, systems and ways of doing things that haven't significantly shifted or adapted in decades. This prolonged rigidity, this lack of genuine evolution, creates a deep-seated, pervasive frustration that simmers beneath the surface of society, particularly among younger generations. It's like a pressure cooker building up steam, you know?
The sense of being stuck.
Exactly. A sense of being stuck. And this naturally raises an incredibly important question about the pivotal role of younger generations in driving societal change. He emphasizes with great conviction that young people are inherently the motors of change. They are not content to just passively accept the world created by previous generations. They possess an innate, powerful drive to actively mold it to fit their vision, their values, their sense of what is just and right. His prediction, based on meticulous historical patterns and generational theories, is quite stark. We are, he believes, on the verge of what he terms a revolutionary generation, an imminent outburst.
An outburst.
Yeah, where people, driven by this accumulated frustration and a hunger for authenticity, will demand a more alive world. They'll vociferously challenge existing inequalities, outdated norms, rigid social frameworks. He personally feels a powerful, almost palpable sense of unrest in the air, a yearning for something fundamentally different from the static social landscape he perceives around him. This isn't just a forecast. It's an observation of a deep historical current that feels like it's about to break the surface.
That's a compelling and perhaps a bit unsettling vision of what might lie ahead. So, if this profound societal shift, this revolutionary demand for change, is indeed coming, how should we as individuals prepare ourselves? What can you, the listener, do right now to not just brace for it, but maybe even thrive within it?
The main thing, he advises, is to actively embrace it. Change, even if initially disruptive, seemingly chaotic, or even perceived as for the worse by some, is ultimately healthy for the human spirit.
Why healthy?
Because humans inherently need vitality. We need novelty. We need a different social landscape to thrive. Resisting this inevitable tide of change is utterly futile. Technology, fueled by the relentless energy and vision of young people, will inevitably reshape the world regardless of anyone's resistance. It is far, far better, he argues, to proactively welcome this disruption, to be excited about the new possibilities, the new opportunities that arise from this very process of upheaval.
See it as opportunity, not just threat.
Precisely. See it not as an end, but as a fertile beginning. He illustrates this with a poignant observation from the business world. While many established industries are currently devastated by global events, by technological shifts, changing consumer demands, this very devastation paradoxically opens up immense space. Space for entirely new ideas, new business models, innovative ventures. He sees particular fertile potential in businesses that can offer novel experiences to people, especially those who have felt confined, isolated, or disengaged.
A shift towards experience.
It suggests a fundamental shift from passive consumption to active engagement and deeper connection. Yeah. The key, he concludes, is to remain profoundly open, remarkably adaptable, and limitlessly imaginative about these emerging possibilities, rather than stubbornly clinging to old ways of doing things that are destined to be swept away by the powerful, inevitable tide of change. The future, he implies, really belongs to those who can see the new opportunities in the rubble of the old.
Wow. What a powerful and truly expansive deep dive into the human capacity for resilience, for transformation, for adaptability. From navigating devastating personal health battles to understanding and harnessing our deepest emotions, mastering a craft, preparing for societal shifts, the overarching message seems clear. Your attitude, your unwavering willingness to learn from failure, and your ability to channel even what you perceive as your dark side for a higher constructive purpose. These are, without a doubt, your greatest strengths.
Absolutely. And if we truly connect all of this to the bigger picture, maybe remember this profound truth. The greatest tragedy you can experience in life is not failure itself. It's rather the crushing regret of wasted potential. So as you move forward from this moment into whatever challenges or opportunities await you, ask yourself not what you can't do because of your perceived limitations or past setbacks, but what you will do with the precious time and the immense potential you possess. Choose to embrace the discomfort of growth. Because that discomfort is fleeting, it's a temporary friction. While the deeper and more profound pain of regret for not trying, for not daring, that can last a lifetime. Your future is not a predetermined path. It's an unwritten canvas, really, waiting for you to boldly imagine and then courageously act upon it.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep digging for those insights and keep transforming.